If you know nothing about Slumber Party Massacre 2, just take a look at this. Yeah, that's all you need to know. A guy in all leather rocking a sick guitar with a killer drill at the end of it. You know it's gonna be a great time, just don't take it too seriously. This movie is pure insanity, and I love it. And I'm not the only one. My good friend and fellow horror enthusiast, Steve from Retro Analog Entertainment, also grew up with and adores this movie.
That's right, Seth. This one is a childhood favorite of mine, and I have fond memories of snatching it up at the local video store on a Friday night, along with the first one. I can think of no greater way to spend a Friday night than pizza and a Slumber Party Massacre marathon. I'm honored to delve into this 80s cheese fest with you, because let's face it, if there was ever a movie that warranted a deep dive, it's Slumber Party Massacre 2.
I completely agree, and I'm so glad to have you on board, Steve. Now, there's no doubt that Slumber Party Massacre 2 borrows heavily from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, but is it a ripoff? Steve and I will dip our toes into the surface level similarities before we dive into the plot and really break down those differences. And of course, we'll end with a rating that will determine if Slumber Party Massacre 2 really is an Elm Street ripoff. Welcome to the HellBound Horror Show. A young teen girl is having nightmares of a mysterious male killer, and these nightmares are a huge focal point to the story. Her friends, of course, don't believe her. One of the film's antagonists is named Krueger. She pulls the dream killer out from one of her dreams and brings him into reality. He begins to kill off all of her friends. The killer has one-liners that he uses throughout. And there is a heavy emphasis on red and green colors. So yeah, on paper there are some similar beats.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, the film was released about 8 months after A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, which was a monster hit and really sent Freddy's popularity into the stratosphere. Freddy really was the king of 80s horror by this point.
We'll talk about all the differences once we go over the plot, but before we do that, Steve, will you do me the honor and talk about Slumber Party Massacre 1?
Sure thing, Seth. The first Slumber Party Massacre was produced by the legendary B-movie producer Roger Corman. Released in 1982, the film followed the slasher movie formula set about by the original Halloween. But it was different from most early 80s slashers at the time in that it was written, produced, and directed by women. Now, not only that, but the original screenplay was also written by activist and feminist author Rita Mae Brown. Now, the script would eventually be revised by director Amy Holden Jones, but the story and many of the themes still stand. The film is about escaped mental patient Russ Thorne, who targets a group of teens having a, you guessed it, slumber party. And his weapon of choice? A giant power drill, which isn't exactly subtle. Now, the film is an exercise in exploitation, complete with scantily clad victims and gratuitous shower scenes. But mixed in with the usual early 80s slasher tropes are empowered female characters in roles that otherwise would have been dominated by men in this era, like the telephone repair worker, or the carpenter, or the strong-willed basketball coach. The male characters are very ineffective and scared here, and they tend to die in the bloodiest and most violent ways. So, our lead Valerie and her younger sister Courtney take the fight to the driller killer, and by the end of the film, they eventually defeat Russ Thorne by first hacking off his drill.
Slumber Party Massacre 2 actually does a fairly good job of connecting back to the first film. The sister tandem of Victoria and Courtney from the first movie come back in the sequel, but this time it's the younger sister Courtney who is our lead. Victoria is still important, but has little screen time. After the tragic events of the first movie, Victoria is locked away in a mental institution. Courtney has been having terrible nightmares about her sister and other bloody events. The film mostly follows Courtney and her female friends who are in a band together. One of the bandmates' father just got a new condo a few hours away, so they want to spend the weekend there to rehearse. It'll be a fun slumber party weekend. What could go wrong? The boyfriends eventually come down and spend time with the girls. Courtney's nightmares are slowly starting to drip into reality. Even when she's awake, weird things begin to happen. but it seems like it's mostly in her head.
Courtney's nightmares and visions worsen as she's attacked by, among other things, a raw chicken. And my favorite, watches as half of her friend's face turns into a giant zit and explodes. All the while, she's stalked in her dreams by a demented rocker decked out in leather and steel-toed boots. Hey, doesn't he look kinda like a young John Travolta? Now, as Seth mentioned earlier, the rocker's weapon of choice is a guitar with a giant drill attached to it. Pretty unique. So the driller killer eventually makes his way out of Courtney's dreams and into reality. Sound familiar? He goes after the teenagers with his giant guitar drill and still has time for a few song and dance numbers in between killings. Will anyone survive this slumber party massacre?
I freaking love this movie. It's just so fun. It's a perfect party movie for horror fans. It's got good jams, good lighting, solid cinematography, great blood, fun performances, surreal yet goofy atmosphere, and it's just so easy to watch. Sure, you can tell that the film wasn't made with a lot of money, but this being a Roger Corman production, the small budget was stretched really well. Slumber Party Massacre 2 hits well above its weight. It's pure insanity and it's absurd. Another positive is that, just like the first film, the sequel was also written and directed entirely by a woman. The whole series is, in fact, and that is pretty dope. The killer is out of this world. What a great idea. Yeah, he's a stereotypical rock and roller, but he absolutely owns that part. It's a super memorable performance, and so is his weapon of choice. The killer driller guitar. It has to be one of the best underrated slasher weapons of all time.
I also love this movie. It's pure 80s cheese from start to finish, and like Seth mentioned, it's got a rockin' soundtrack.
I wanna be your Tokyo convertible. I wanna have fun with you. I just love going through the motions. I just love going through the motions.
The songs that Courtney and her friends sing throughout the film were actually performed by the band Wednesday Week, and the tunes are catchy as hell. And I didn't actually recently spend $35 on their CD or anything. Anyway, the cheesy music and dance numbers from the Driller Killer are also a ton of fun. Is this actually the first slasher musical? The direction by Deborah Brock, who also penned the screenplay, is very stylish, and at 77 minutes long, the film moves at a lightning pace. Plus, we've got some excellent practical effects and gore. The killer and his weapon are very unique, and the actor gives a fun performance. As Seth said, the movie is fun. It's nothing to be taken too seriously. Just sit back, enjoy the 80s cheese, and have a great time.
The film isn't going to appeal to everyone though. The original Slumber Party Massacre had heart and some genuinely clever satire moments that the sequel is sorely missing. While Slumber Party Massacre 2 is a bit more self-aware, it doesn't carry the mostly serious tone that the original had, and some fans could be disappointed by that shift. Also, if you're not a fan of that rock and roll music, you may be disappointed to find that a large part of the runtime is devoted to it. From music on the radio to the all-girl band playing to even the driller killer himself having a few musical numbers. The music could take away from the actual story, but I think it enhances the campy atmosphere. Audio, at least on the DVD transfer, is a little peaky and it sounds a bit harsh.
Never.
It's clearly not a great motion picture, but it's such a fun, cheesy movie.
I had mentioned before this almost being like a slasher musical, and that right there is going to turn some people off. Now the music is such a big part of the film, and it does work very well here, but I can see some horror fans being disappointed by that aspect and wanting more emphasis on the classic slasher movie formula. Also, the story logic is a bit strange at times, and the ending was a tad disappointing for me. Die-hard fans of the first movie might not be happy with the direction this sequel takes, but I enjoyed it for taking risks and giving us something totally different from the first film, while still having a solid connection to it.
So Steve, would you recommend this movie to others, and if so, what crowd is going to enjoy it the most?
I definitely recommend Slumber Party Massacre 2. Fans of 80s horror movies are really going to get a kick out of this. And not only that, but those who just want to watch a fun movie with a fast pace, likable characters, and great music. Fun is the operative word here. This film has that in spades.
Slumber Party Massacre 2 is a blast of a film that is way better than it has any right to be. It's not perfect, and it's clearly full of camp and cheese, but the film is just so memorable and rewatchable that all of its sins can be forgiven. And even though it was influenced by A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Elm Street elements feel more like an homage rather than a cheap knockoff. But how much Elm Street DNA does Slumber Party Massacre 2 have? I'd say it's about 40% Elm Street and 60% its own thing. Steve, what do you think?
I agree 100%, Seth. Producer Roger Corman has always been a savvy businessman, and when Slumber Party Massacre 2 went into production, the Nightmare on Elm Street series was king of the box office. So, this film definitely capitalized on the Freddy craze. But Corman was smart in that he let writer-director Deborah Brock do her own thing with it, rather than a straight ripoff. She ended up giving audiences a very unique slasher film, and certainly the most unique in the Slumber Party Massacre series. As for the Elm Street DNA, 40% Freddy and 60% its own thing sounds right to me.
Steve, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm a huge fan of yours and I watch every video that you put out. You really do amazing stuff. So thank you again for joining me. Can you tell everyone at home what you do on your YouTube channel and where they can find you?
Thank you so much, Seth, for inviting me onto your channel for this discussion. I'm a huge fan and it's been an honor. Now, for those interested, you can find my channel at Retro Analog Entertainment, where I review lots of horror films on Blu-ray and 4K. I would love for you guys to stop by and check things out.
Link to Steve's channel is in the description below, so definitely check him out. Go sub to his channel. Go send him some love. Let's try to get him to 1,000 subscribers because he puts out amazing work and more people need to be watching him. And that's all I have for tonight. So, thank you all so much for watching, and sweet dreams, everyone. If you're still watching this, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please check out Steve's channel. It's really good stuff. He does amazing work, and I've been like a fanboy of his for a long time. So I'm so glad that he finally got to be on this channel. In the comments below, let me know what other YouTube creators that you enjoy watching, because I love watching other horror creators as well. So definitely drop their links in the description below. Thanks, everyone.